car makers and government regulators steer towards a future without driver controls. Is it safer to get rid of the steering wheel? Automated driving expert Jamie Carlson from the car maker JAC-NIO. And meet Bart Myers, who wants all of us to speak nicely to each other on the internet. Plus, could you live forever, and would you want to? Our reporters Martin Giles from MIT Technology Review and John Swartz of Dow Jones this week on Press Here. Good morning, everyone. I'm Scott McGrew. There is a push by car makers to take the steering wheel out of self-driving cars and the brake pedal and everything else. This is not as insane as it sounds. The thing about an autonomous car is if it's working properly, the driver has nothing to drive. That in turn means the human behind the wheel is probably not paying enough attention to take control if that became necessary. Bottom line, say engineers, if you're going to drive, fine. Grab the wheel, look out the window, and drive. If you're not going to drive, if you're going to sort of monitor the situation and let the car do the work, then let the car do the work. The theory is the driver becomes a liability, not an asset in this situation. Jamie Carlson is one of the world's leading experts on self-driving cars. He's worked at Tesla, curiously at Apple as well, and is now the vice president of automation at NIO, a Chinese car company. That's been called Chinese answer to Tesla, one of China's most legitimate challengers to develop electric vehicles. We'll get to NIO in a moment, but let's start with that question about self-driving cars, joined by Martin Giles of MIT Technology Review, John Swartz of Dow Jones. What is NIO's position on all of this? Is this remove all of the stuff out of the dash, or is it keep it in there?
Well, there comes a time when you do need to remove the safety driver. We do believe in building a technology where we want to have a fully self-driving car that we can sell to consumers. So our cars are still going to have steering wheels, they're still going to have brakes, but in order to be able to prove that that car can drive safely, we do need to enable our technology to advance to a point where we can remove those drivers.
There is this, graphic engineers call it the uncanny valley, where they've gotten far enough ahead, but not so far. And there is that sort of that magic point where you think, is it better to have the machine or is it better to have the driver? We know it's worse to have both of them simultaneously, right?
Yes, and we believe that very, very strongly, that we do need to have a clear differentiation. All of our products that we sell today are level 2. We're very clear about that. We do have some technologies that assist you with that driving, but we try to make it very clear that you are the driver. There's no ambiguity in that, and really the system is there to assist you rather than perform that act of driving.
So that if there's wheel and there's pedals, I mean, you are going to use them, right? If there's some kind of accident situation, the instinct is to grab the pedal.
I think the concern, though, is right. If the car is doing some of it, that's when you start to look off here, and the wheel may be a disadvantage.
And that bothers me because it's just confusing, right? We're in this, as you say, this uncanny valley. So how do we get out of it faster?
Well, so NIO's approach, we have our level 2 product that you can buy today, and we're developing a level 4 product. We have a very clear...
What's a level 2, level 4?
Thank you. So level 2 is driver assistance. So it's things like adaptive cruise control, emergency braking, some steering functions, these types of things. But in that system, you, the human, are the driver, and the vehicle is there to help you. In a level 4 system, basically that car works in certain operational domains completely by itself, and you are a passenger in that case. There is a level 3, which is somewhere in the middle. That's a level that we
Sounds like the danger zone.
The problem with that is there is this ambiguity because the driver is not responsible for the act of driving until the car needs them to take over, and that's dangerous.
There's almost like this unnerving experience that I went through at CES where Lyft is going to be doing these autonomous pickups in Las Vegas, and they're working with Aptiv. So they have the autonomous car, I'm in it, but we have a safety driver. And there's this kind of nebulous nature where they say, the unpredictability of pedestrians, other cars. There's at one point another car kind of pulled in front of us, and that required a swift action by the safety driver. Yep. I mean, this is kind of like the world we live in, where we don't know where exactly or who's in charge.
Yeah, well, that is actually one of the most challenging parts about an autonomous car. It's a chicken and egg, because once everything is autonomous, the act of driving is much easier. But the reality is we live in a world where autonomous vehicles are going to need to interact with humans. And it's very difficult, even for humans, to predict what another human's going to do. And I think the description you just gave is probably a good example of that.
At NIO, you're building electric autonomous cars. Which one is the more important? Clearly, every car maker is working towards electric, and autonomous is now becoming just sort of something you have to do. I mean, my car does, and it's not fancy, but it'll do adaptive cruise control and just sort of crawl along with the slow traffic. Which one's more important, the electric part or the autonomous part to the consumer?
I think it depends on your time frame. I'm a believer that electric vehicles are one of the many things that we really need to advance in order to save ourselves from the pollution and a lot of these things that are harming us. That's hopefully a long-term, but that's a long-term effect that if we don't take action now, we're going to be in for trouble. The autonomous vehicle portion and even the driver assistance part, that affects change now. Globally there's about 1.25 million people who die in traffic every single year. There's things that we can do today, and this is why organizations like NHTSA are starting to put in rating systems in this to try to incentivize or even mandate certain functions be in the car to try to bring that number down. So we're kind of attacking both of these important problems at both sides.
So for now, you're in China. I mean, eventually you might come to the U.S.
Yep.
We don't know the timing, although probably within the next couple of years. I'm wondering what you think of in terms of the traditional car companies. I know Porsche just came out with the Taycan. It's a sedan which costs like about $185,000. Yep. Are you concerned about the major traditional car makers as competition, especially as you think about moving into the U.S.?
Sure. Well, here's how I look at it. So right now, we actually want more competition in the EV space. I'm excited with what Tesla is doing. I'm excited with Rivian. I think every additional electric vehicle that's on the road helps that adoption, and it helps bring more consumers to a point where they're ready to buy an electric vehicle. And I think the same thing will happen in maybe 10 to 15 years now with autonomous cars.
Let me squeeze in two more questions. The first is, you went from Tesla to Apple to, you know where I'm going with this, right?
Oh, yeah.
To NIO. So there were cars on either side of it. Can we then presume that Apple is working on an autonomous car?
What I'm allowed to say is I worked on an autonomous system. I've been
really? You're allowed to say that? Okay.
Yeah. But beyond
for cars.
That, yeah.
Yes.
I hope I'm allowed to say that now that I've said
Well, you just did.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you.
But go on.
When did you work at Apple? What year?
Oh boy, it was 3 years ago.
Okay.
I left.
Okay.
Yeah. So, but
He's confessing, so let's not
Yeah.
interrupt. Let's not interrupt. Go on. Yes.
no, but fortunately for me, I've been out of there long enough, and everybody there respects their NDAs well enough that I genuinely don't know what they're doing any longer.
All right, well, that's okay. That's fair enough. The other question I want to squeeze in is, this is a Chinese car made in China, but all of the R&D, every last bit of the R&D is done in San Jose, California, in Silicon Valley.
I wouldn't go that far. We do have a lot of really core competencies and technologies in China as well.
Yes.
I would say more of the advanced R&D that really takes
I'll accept
Silicon
that.
Valley
All of
DNA
the advanced
happens here.
R&D is happening in Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Well, look at it this way. This is how we established the company. We have our office, our headquarters rather, in Shanghai. That's where our manufacturing is in Hefei. Our design studios in Munich, our technology operations in San Jose. If you really look at that, we've kind of had this center of excellence model where we've really went to the talent. So,
Jamie Carlson is the head of autonomous driving at NIO. We appreciate you being with us this morning.
thank you guys.